Hello, this is lesson 1 of week 2. My name is Mildred. This week we are going to look at cascading style sheets, and in this lesson we are going to discuss cascading style sheets and how and where we apply styles to an HTML element. At the end of this week, you will understand what CSS is, where to apply your styles on the document. We're going to look at CSS colors. We're also going to look at the text and the font properties of CSS. Now, we use cascading style sheets to style HTML documents, and with CSS3 we can describe how HTML elements should be displayed on the screen and other media. And so CSS3 will help us to apply responsiveness to a web page in such a way that the page will present properly for different screen sizes and different devices. And so by week 9 and 10, we are going to look at media queries and grid view. For now, we are going to have basic CSS, and then as we move along, we are going to apply responsiveness to our web page. There are 3 ways you can apply styles on a page. The first way is to apply the style inline. And when we say inline, it means that you apply the style on the start tag of the HTML element. There is an attribute called the style attribute. This style attribute holds the property and the value of the CSS you want to apply to the element. So let's say we have this heading and we want to make the heading, for instance, red. So I'll make color red. When I save this, I will go to my web page, refresh. I have my first web page in red. Now ignore these properties and values. We are going to discuss each property and value as we go along, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I am trying to use properties that we have not discussed, but you are going to get details of those properties and values in the next lessons. Let's say I want to center this. I can put a semicolon and put text align and center. Save this. When I refresh my page, I should have it centered. So this is one way to apply style to a page. We have another way of applying style to a web page, and is by using the style tag in the head area of the page. So I'll start style and I will end style. So this is embedding style, and this style is going to be applied on this page alone. When you apply a style inline, it takes priority. So if I have style specified in the style tag in the head area of a page, if I specify an inline style, it is going to ignore this for this H1 element and apply what is inline. So take note that when you use an inline style, it takes priority over any style elsewhere. Inline styles are not the best because when you need to make changes, you have to go into each tag. Let's see what the syntax of CSS is. We have something called the selector. This selector targets the element that you want to apply the style to. And then in a pair of curly braces like this, you specify the property and then a colon and the value. If you want to specify several properties and values, you can put a semicolon at the end of the first one and move to the next. So this is the syntax of CSS. Now let's look at the selector. We have the element selector, which means that you can write the set element you want the style applied to. So I want this applied to the H1 tag. What property do I want to put here? I want the H1 tag to be aligned to the right, and I also want the color of the H1 tag to be, let's say, blue. I'll use the hexadecimal value. When I save this and I refresh my page, it's going to be aligned right and it's going to be in blue. So this is the second way we can apply style on a page. The first way is to use the inline, applying the style using the style attribute on the start tag of the HTML element. The second way is to embed the style on the page by using the style tag at the head section of the page. And then the third way is to use an external style sheet using the link tag in the head area of a page. So link rel will go to style sheet, then href is going to link to the style sheet. Let's say we have a style sheet called main.css, and we are going to create an external style sheet called main.css that will be applied to this page. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to put a text within the p tag so that we can see the effect of this style. Okay, so we have text on the page. Now we want to define an external style sheet that we can call on a page to apply styles to this page. I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to save the file as main.css. Now the extension for a cascading style sheet is CSS. So your file name .css, and I'll save this. Now we have main.css and I'm going to apply the style on this page. On this main.css file, we are going to put our styles to be applied to the page. Now we have applied the style using the link tag, and the href links to the main.css file. Let's use the first type of selector, which is the element selector. We want to apply this style to the h1 tag. What we want to change is the color, and let's say this time we want the color to be green. Okay, so ignore the color values. We are going to discuss that in detail in the next lesson. And I also want the text to be aligned to the center. When I save this and I refresh my page, I should have the green aligned to the center of the page. Let's say I want to apply the same style to the h2 tag. Save, refresh my page, and I have it applied to the h2 tag. There is something we can do. We can do group selector, where each of the elements have the same styles to be applied. And instead of writing them separately, we can write h1, h2. I'll delete this. Let's change the color this time to red for two of them. If I save and refresh, it is going to be applied to both tags. So you can actually group your selectors like this. Sometimes we do not want to apply this style to an element, but we want the elements to have this style. We can use an ID selector, which we write using the hash sign and then a name. Let's say this name is alignment. You can give it any name you want. I will save this. When I go to my index page, I want this alignment to apply to the paragraph. So I'm going to put the ID attribute equal to the same name as the style, alignment. So ID equal to alignment. I will save this, and when I refresh my page, I should have the color of the text in the paragraph as red with a 0.5 opacity, which means it's going to be a very light red, and the text aligned to the center. So I'm going to save, refresh this, and I have the style applied to the paragraph. So you can use the ID selector like this. If I want a class selector, I will use a dot and a name for the style. So let's say my color. I want this my color to be applied to the h1 tag. So I'm going to take this out. What I will do, since it's a class selector I use here, which is indicated by a dot, I am going to put a class attribute on the h1 tag is equal to the name my color. Save this. When I refresh my page, I will have that style applied to the h1 tag. You can also apply your style to all elements on the page by using the asterisk sign like this. When I save this, refresh my page, I will have that style applied to all elements on the page. There are other types of selectors that we have. We have the attribute selector, which will be applied to any elements that has a particular attribute. We have the combinators, we have pseudo class and pseudo elements, and we are going to discuss all of this in weeks 8 and 9. Before we end this lesson, let's look at how we write comments in CSS. In CSS, you write your comment using a /, an asterisk, the comment you want to write, and then an asterisk and a / to end. So this is how we write comments to be excluded from execution. In the event that you have a code you don't want to use anymore, you put the / asterisk at the beginning, and at the end you put the asterisk, the /. And this is how you exempt a code from execution on the page, or leave a note on the page for other developers to know what you did. It is very important to leave comments on your code, and sometimes it reminds you as a developer when you come back what it is you were doing on that line of code. It also leaves a note to other developers to be able to continue from when you stop. It explains your code and it makes your code neater. So this is where we end this lesson. In the next lesson, we are going to look at CSS colors in details.